Alright, so tonight is a Sorba Tevis. It's the yard site of Reb Nosson and Ben Reb Naftali Hertz Sternhartz Menemerov, who was, of course, they refer to him as Reb Nosson Zal. He was the main student, although not necessarily known as the greatest student, but the one who preserved everything from Rabbeinu Nachman, Breslov, Schusi Galena Muklis, Umein Nachal Nevei Makar Chochma, Rabbi Nachman. And Reb Nosson, really, most of the Sfarim it was Reb Nosson who collected them, who, like Likkutei Maharan, it was Reb Nosson who put it together from Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Kind of like how Rav Chaim Vital was to the Ariya Kodesh. Very similar type of relationship. But Reb Nosson himself also, he was a big Talmid Chacham, and he was Mechaber Sfarim. And one sefer that I've always enjoyed whenever I've learned, but I have not learned very much, I've actually learned very, very little, is Likkutei Halachos, which is a Hasidic, and a real Hasidic Parish, real Hasidic commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, on the Code of Jewish Law. And so that tonight is a Sorba Tevis, and it's Reb Nosson's yard site. So, Davar B'Itoiv Matoiv, we can both learn something about a fast day, Sorba Tevis. Tomorrow we're fasting, and something that Reb Nosson taught. So it's kedai on both sides. So this is the first teaching in Hilchos Tainius, Hilchos Tisha B'Av Shar Tainius, that Reb Nosson brings in Likkutei Halachos. Inyan Arba'a Anisim Kedei Lahalois Malchus de Kedusha. He says something very Kabbalistic here, that the concept of the four fasts is in order to elevate the Holy Kingdom. Shehi Bechinas Daled, V'Moshe Kosev Rabbeinu B'Siman Lamed. So it's a reference to Likkutei Maharan, where Ibn Nachman says that there's an inyan of the number 4 when it comes to the Holy Kingdom. We'll leave that just as it is. We could learn the Likkutei Maharan also, but first of all, let's take a step back and understand the idea of the 4 fasts. Because a lot of people get confused because they know about 6 fasts in the Jewish calendar, right? So, first of all, the big fast is Yom Kippur, which is from the Torah. The other one that is generally observed is Tainus Esther, the day before Purim. That's a customary fast. It's not legally binding, but it is such a strong custom that it's practiced for all intents and purposes is legally binding. But there's no clear takona of the day before Purim to fast. On the other hand, the 4 fasts that are mentioned specifically in Scripture, the book of Zechariah, the book of the prophet Zechariah, there's explicit mention of the 4 fasts. And also, incidentally, in the book of Esther, it's mentioned that Purim is established just like those fasts were established. There's a zushtel between them, between these 2 inyonim of the fasting and the of these 4 fasts, and and the creation of the holiday of Purim. And similarly, we could say a similar thing about Hanukkah as well. That we see that there is a biblically endorsed authority to create fasts and to create feasts, in addition to those that already appeared in the Torah. However, after Hanukkah, there is no, we don't have anything new that would be included in this. And so the 4 fasts in Zechariah, it says there's the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month, and the fast of the 10th month. And so this one is the fast of the 10th month. Is Asar B'Teves, it's the 10th day of the 10th month in the Jewish calendar, considering Nosson to be the first month of the Jewish year, and Rosh Hashanah, which is the new year, to be the 7th month of the year. So the other fasts would be Shavuot B'Tammuz is the fast of the 4th month, Tisha B'Av is the fast of the 5th month, and Tzom Gedalia is the fast of the 7th month. This is what we have in Scripture, and it's and this is how we understand it. So we'll leave it that what Reb Nachman says is that there's a concept of the Holy Kingdom that's related to the number 4. There's 4 letters in God's name, etc. And so these 4 fasts are connected to that concept. So Reb Nosson Zal, the Balalulos Chosik Aleinu explains this inyan of why the 4 fasts come to elevate the Holy Kingdom. So Nosson Zal says, Al Yedei HaChurban V'Agolus Nafla Malchus D'Kedusha V'Nimsa Malchus L'Oivdei Kechovim. He says, through the destruction of the temple and the exile of the Jewish people, the sacred kingdom, the kingdom of holiness, fell, and the kingdom, the Malchus, which is the concept of the Shechina, of the Knesset Yisrael, of this world, of the lowest level of God's revelation, but this concept was taken from holiness and handed over to the heathens. That's why we fast. Through fasting, our faith is elevated. Again, Reb Nosson makes a lot of references to Reb Nachman's Sforim. I'm not a Boki in Sifrei Breslov, to be honest. And I learn it at certain times. Like now is Reb Nosson's yard site, so that's why we're learning a shtickle from Reb Nosson. I'm not someone who learns Sifrei Breslov every day, although maybe I should. So anyway, so he makes a reference. I know some of the Torahs from Reb Nachman, some of the more well-known ones, but this one I'm also not familiar with. So he says that fasting elevates our faith, and through this, the kingdom is elevated through faith, which is also a concept of faith. Malchus, the kingdom, is the concept of faith. Because the main reason why there is golus, why there is exile, is because of a lack of faith. as our sages taught in the Talmud, Lo Chorv Yerushalayim illa al sheposku ba anshe emunah. Jerusalem was only destroyed because there ceased to be faithful men in Jerusalem. It's an interesting point because a lot of the Kanoim, they like to point to teachings of Reb Nachman to support the Shita Kadesha, right? We'll get into a little Satmar anti-Zionism here, right? There are a lot of Torahs from Reb Nachman that are pointed to for this. And I would say the same idea that, and you'll have to excuse me, I'm very tired, as I mentioned this morning. I got up at 4 in the morning. So I've already been up for 12 hours, which is not that strange. I don't know why I'm so tired. I didn't have any caffeine today either. I fasted half the day today because really the Indian of Asar B'Tevis is also on the 8th and the 9th day. So yesterday, today I fasted until Chatzos. Now, I'm not saying this to brag. Just should have fasted the whole day. I didn't have koyach to do that. Tomorrow we have to fast all day because it's the actual tainus. Anyway, but it's not such a long day. It's nicht gefährlich. We can do it. So anyway, the whole idea of Zionism, and I would say even religious Zionism, is that we as koichi v'oitzim yod yosel yisachayil hazeh, that the strength and the power of my hand accomplish this valor, which is obviously something that we are not allowed to believe. The Torah warns that we should not speak in such a way. And so the secular Zionists believe that they have to only help themselves because they don't believe in God. And the religious Zionists believe in God, but they believe in the teaching that the Gentile world, who we respect, but we have our differences with, they often say God helps those who help themselves. And that is a Jewish idea for most things in the world. For, you're sick, you go to the doctor. But the Chazal say specifically that God gave the Reshus, He gave the permission to doctors to heal. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. And so He made them shluchim. But when it comes to the Geula, when it comes to eschatology, we are forbidden from realizing eschatology because eschatology has to be through pure faith. And now some of the religious Zionists are more pragmatic, and they had the way that Rabbi Soloveitchik had a much more pragmatic approach. He was very proudly a religious Zionist, but not in the eschatological sense. He said that this is nit a schalte de geule, nit a schalte das schalte da, des hat gur nit mit Mashiach. He said that ich bin a patriot. Rabbi J.B. Soloveitchik, Zeichet Tzadik V'Kodesh L'Vrocha, he said that the founding of the state of Israel is not the beginning of the redemption, nor is it even the beginning of the redemption. It has nothing with the Messiah. There are no eschatological overtones with the establishment of the state of Israel, and his support for the state of Israel is patriotic and not eschatological. And that's a much more balanced and nuanced approach, and a spiritually healthy approach, if one feels that they are compelled to support the country that's now in the Holy Land. I think that's a much more healthy and balanced approach. than fanatical eschatology. And part of it is also the greatness of verlassen sich the geula of emunah, that making eschatology totally reliant on God and not our own works it's a much safer way of living. In addition to all of the issues of faith and everything, and the heresy of believing that we can accomplish these things on our own, there's something more to it. It's a much more normal way of living. Meaning, if you become fanatical, and you think, oh, I'm going to go and settle, in the Shtachim, settle the Holy Land, and make fights with the Arabs, and this is what's going to bring Mashiach. It's not what's going to bring Mashiach. It's what's going to incite terrorism. It's not a healthy way. And furthermore, like Rav Shach said, when some of these Shtachim were founded, he warned the Jews who moved to these villages. He said, "You mark my word, these are not going to last. The Israeli government someday is going to make you leave your homes in these towns, in Gush Katif, and whatever. And I don't want you to lose your faith on account of that. You can remember there was an old Jew in Bnei Brak who predicted such a thing. And it wasn't a Ruach HaKodesh Zach, necessarily. I'm not saying Rav Shach didn't have Ruach HaKodesh. He did. He had Das Torah, the Ruach HaKodesh, of a big tzaddik. But what I'm saying is, it's common sense. You could see the writing on the walls. This was temporary. And the truth is, the Chesed Lavram says that when Mashiach comes, there's only going to be a few thousand Jews in Eretz Yisrael. The Satmarov used to cry, what's going to be? We hope and pray that, however it is, that it will be in a peaceful way. Not that Chas v'Sholom, that these Jews will lose their lives, but only they'll be relocated in a peaceful way, and then when Mashiach comes, then they'll be the Kibbutz Goliath and the return, Shivas Tzion, the return to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim. So the inyan of Golus is because of a lack of emunah, and so therefore the people who don't have faith in God, even if they're building the Holy Land and they're making their farms and their buildings and whatever else, they are not expressing faith by doing that. They're expressing belief in their own handiwork, that somehow they can actualize eschatology as opposed to putting a faith in God. And so, all right, I can get off my soapbox. So we'll get back to what Reb Nosson Zal says, and this is the reason why they were exiled. And this concept of Malchus, of the kingdom, was handed over, which is the concept of faith, was handed over to the heathens, to the pagans, to the idolaters. Valkein mis'anen arba tainisim k'dei lahalos ha'emunah shebechinas Malchus shebechinas dalad kanal. And that is why we fast, the 4 fasts, in order to bring faith more into our hearts, which is the concept of the kingdom, which is the concept of the number 4. As we mentioned before, Reb Nachman talks about this, it's an interesting thing, because these two terms of the kingdom and faith are very important to our Christian neighbors. And I'm wondering if that's what Reb Nosson meant, that the Bechinas HaMalchus Shehu Emunah that the concept of the kingdom, the concept of faith, was given to the hands of the Gentiles, and we have to rectify that, and that's the aspect of Golus. It's the aspect of our exile, and we rectify that damage, that pagam, through the fasting. So that's just an idea that I had. It shows how verkrumt my thoughts are. Alright, let's stop this video now and we'll do another one, because 20 minutes is enough, right? Alright, let's wait to press this one.